as we get rolling with our internship workshop today, just wanted to give kind of an overview of what to expect and what we'll be doing. I'm Rachel Becklin and I work in the Career Center here at Grand Valley. And just wanted to spend a couple of minutes with you all, about 15-20 minutes or so, kind of going over what to expect with an internship, just some general basic information on where to search, where to apply, some general tips and tricks on that. And then we'll be joined by a student here at Grand Valley, Megan Logan, who had just finished an internship and is currently continuing on with her organization, just to talk a little bit about what she's learned and her experience through that process. And then we have Hannah Stahl here as well from OST, who's a senior recruiter there to give that employer perspective on kind of from her end of things, some things that she's looking at and what makes for a great internship experience from that employer's perspective. So again, thanks for being here today. And for those of you just joining us, if you wouldn't mind scanning that code, that helps us get a sense for who is all here today to check in. So as folks are continuing to do that, I was wondering if we could just do a quick drop in the chat from everybody in terms of what majors that you all are coming from. That'll help give us an idea of who's here today in the audience. So can I just take a quick second and drop that in the chat for us? That would be great. Awesome. Oh, I love it. It's all over the place. So you guys are coming from all different types of majors and programs. So that's great. And that'll help as we kind of go through and can kind of key in on some of those aspects of the programs and how internships relate with that. So I wanted to start with just some internship basics. You know, we use the word internship a lot. We're using it in a pretty general sense because really there's lots of forms of experiential education that can fall under this internship umbrella. So some programs might call it field work. Some programs might call it, you know, even our student teaching kind of falls into this kind of generalized internship kind of category, practicums, things like that. So when you hear me use the word internship, really what we're getting at is related experience to help you apply what you're learning in the classroom to what it is that you're hoping to do once you graduate and what you want that next step to be for you. So, so many great reasons to do an internship, right? Of course, there's just that professional development, being able to learn some new skills, apply what you're learning in the classroom, but there's also the ability to really test out and see, is this something that I want to do? Is this the type of work environment that I want to be? You know, some of your programs might have more direct lineage into what a career path might look like, but it's still important to explore that type of organization, that type of culture, just that general type of industry that seems to be the best fit for you. And it's also a great way to build relationships. You know, it's still true today that who we know is so important when it comes to networking, to looking at jobs, to finding opportunities. And so it's just a really great opportunity to start building some of those professional contacts. So lots of great reasons to do an internship. So at Grand Valley, there's a couple of different ways that you can look at that. And one way to look at an internship is whether or not you want to get credit for that experience. And an internship, some programs require them, so you have to do an internship. So I saw in that list of majors that there were a few programs in there that do require the internship, while others it might be just an elective credit or just some additional credit you can apply towards graduation. And either is totally fine. When we're talking about an internship, though, we're talking about it from the terms of that it's going to give you some good hands-on experience for what your end goals are. However, if you are getting credit, your academic department might have some specific things that they're looking for in that experience that they're going to be checking for. So before you ever want to get credit for your internship experience, you're going to want to check in with your faculty internship coordinator about whether or not that experience really fits into that what they would deem as a credit-bearing experience. And so we do have a list of all of those internship coordinators on our website. So I have Jessica here who's dropping some links into the chat. She works with our office, so she's helping me out with that. So she's dropping some links into the chat box that will help. And so this one just kind of hits on just where to find general information on if you do want credit for an internship, what are some things to do and to be looking for. So a couple of things to keep in mind about that. You know, if you want to get credit for it, if you're really just looking for the experience for it, and again, either is definitely fine. But if you need that credit, you want to make sure you're following kind of what your academic area is looking for. And then when it comes to when you should complete an internship, we definitely get this question a lot. And it really sort of depends on the type of experience that you're looking for. We have organizations that love looking at sophomores, for example, in terms of interns, because it allows them to continually build a relationship with them throughout their experience, you know, and the rest of their time at college. Where we have other organizations that really like to look at students when they're getting ready to graduate in hopes of converting them, right? Or just because they know you've taken a lot of your upper level classes and you might have more to contribute in that sense. So it can really depend on when to take an internship. I always encourage folks to be looking at least a semester before you want to complete the internship, if not 2 semesters beforehand. Just because it can take a little while to search, to apply, to go through that application process. It can also, you know, it can take a little time to get that approved if you're looking to get credit for it. You want to make registration deadlines, that sort of a thing. So those are just all things to keep in mind. Summer is a really popular time for organizations to bring interns on because typically students have more time in the summer to work for an internship. So you might find yourself really focusing on a summer experience, and a lot of organizations will actually look for their summer interns even in the fall. So just kind of keeping that in mind, kind of keeping open to that time frame. If you're thinking of doing an internship this summer, you're not too late. There's definitely still lots of opportunities for our summer interns as well. But giving yourself at least a semester is usually pretty helpful. And your internship really can be done in the fall, in the winter, or in the spring, summer. So you really can hit on it at any of those different semester timeframes. A lot of times in the summertime, you might have more ability to work full time. Whereas if you're doing a fall or winter internship, a lot of those tend to be closer to that 10 to 20 hour a week time frame. So that's something that you would talk with your site supervisor about. So those are just some of the general internship kind of basics. So there's a lot of good info on that website Jessica dropped, so feel free to bookmark that. You can always hop back to that. So also, if you do have questions, definitely feel free to drop those in the chat too. We want to make sure we're hitting on as many of these things as you know, that's going to be helpful for you. So so feel free to drop those in and we'll try and get to those as well. So in terms of how and where to search, one of the first things to really think about is what kind of internship are you looking for? What sort of experience is it that you're wanting to gain? And so we do have some resources. These are just a couple of things that some students have found to be helpful. So one is our career guides. And these career guides, we have one for every major here at Grand Valley. And they can just be helpful because it's information based off of our alumni. So you're able to see, you know, where have other students done their internship? So, you know, as you're beginning to think about your search, you know, what are some places to look at maybe with students who have a similar educational background as you? So this is an example of some of our ad PR interns and some of the places that they've completed their internships. You can also see the types of organizations and the different jobs that they've landed since graduating. So these could even be some potential organizations to look at and explore for internship opportunities as well. So these career guides can be pretty helpful just to start getting some ideas in terms of what's going to be something that would be, you know, appealing to you or that you might want to explore a little bit further. We also have a site called Experience Matters, and this is a place where students can actually submit what their internship experience was like. So you'll find quick little, click on View All Experiences here. You'll see just a little snapshot of some of these internship experiences, and it just is helpful just to get an idea of, you know, a sports management major, you know, so what do you actually do in this type of internship experience? So you can click into it and actually get a complete kind of description of what the organization was like and the different projects that the student may have worked on. So again, just to kind of get your mind going in terms of what does seem like it would be something that you might be interested in. So those are just two websites that we have available. We do have more under our resource section on our website, so you could always kind of scope those out. But those are two places, again, just to start narrowing down the type of experience you're looking for. A lot of times when I'm talking with students, when I ask what kind of internship they're interested in, they'll just they'll state what their major is, but connecting that into a work experience can be kind of tricky. So hopefully these guides can give you some ideas in terms of things to be looking at. We also have some online resources that can be really helpful when not only for looking for actual postings and applying for postings, but also for some of that research. So Handshake is one of those. And every student at Grand Valley has a Handshake account. You just have to click on the student login button, and then you can log into the system with your network ID and password. And Handshake is one of those systems. It's a lot like Netflix, right? So the more you use it and interact with it, the more recommendations and better recommendations it's going to start to get for you. So once you do log into Handshake, you'll be able to see some events that might be relevant for you based off of what kind of information is in Handshake, as well as some potential internships or opportunities that might be appealing for you. And this information is really based off of what you have in your student profile. So you can find your profile up here under your icon. You can also, there's some career interest questions that you can complete that'll also help the system get a better sense for not only the types of experiences you may be looking for, but also the location of where those might be. So again, kind of going through and making sure to complete some of that information is helpful. Under the jobs tab over here is where you'll find all of our postings, and we have a lot of postings in here, over 19,000 actually. So there's a lot to have to sift through. So again, that's why having some strong profile information, career interest information identified will help organize these in a way that hopefully is bringing those ones of interest to the top for you. But you can also filter it out through here, and looking through these internships just really can give you a way, again, to kind of see what positions are you gravitating towards, what is consistent within those positions. You know, are you finding that they all tend to be with more nonprofit organizations, or maybe they're working directly with people in a creative way, or, you know, what are the elements that seem to be sticking through for all of these descriptions? And that'll help you identify, oh, maybe these are some keywords that I should be looking for, or these are some opportunities that I should start maybe filtering out a little bit more. And then if you click on this little icon right here, this little bookmark, that'll actually favorite that position. And then again, as you go through and do that, that will help the system understand what types of positions you seem to like. And you can do a similar search with our employers. So, you know, if we look back at those career guides by major, and you see a couple of those employers that were listed in there, you can search them out and then you can actually follow them. And when you do that, the system will email you every time that employer posts a job, every time that employer signs up for a Grand Valley event. So that'll help you stay in the know of what some of your favorite employers are doing and how you might be able to interact with them. You can see here I'm following Hope Network. So that's up there as a tile. But there's some great information affiliated with the employers tab as well. So you can see here, students are able to leave reviews of what their experience was like working there. So you can look through those and see what other students have said about those opportunities. You can actually read about what the interview process was like for those students who had to go through interviews. So you can see on here, it'll say, you know, here's what the process was like. Here are some questions that they asked me. So it's a good interview prep as well. You can see any jobs that might be affiliated with that organization, if they're coming to any, or if they're hosting any events, and then if they're participating in any events as well. You can even see other students who have worked at that organization. So it's great. You can, you know, it makes it really easy just to reach out and to ask somebody about their experience and what it was like to work there. And it's nice because they're usually your classmates and your peers, so they can really give you a good inside scoop into what that experience was. So Handshake definitely has, can be a great resource in terms of, like I say, looking at what's available and physically applying to those opportunities through the website. But it's also a pretty handy research tool too, just to see what you keep clicking into and what you're liking. LinkedIn is kind of similar to Handshake in that you'll have a profile, but this is really used as a strong networking tool, and you can connect in with other alumni, you can connect in with other organizations. So it is a social media platform of sorts, so you do have to create an account. And so you do that by creating a profile, which really looks like an online resume. So you'll have a picture, and then you can include some information about who you are, about your experiences, your education, and kind of fill in all of that. And then it's a great way to stay connected to classmates, to stay connected to supervisors, faculty, and you can really connect in with Grand Valley alumni. So if you did a search for Grand Valley State University, you'll come to Grand Valley's page. And when you're on Grand Valley's page, you can see that we have over 106,000 alumni that are using LinkedIn. So it's a great alumni base. And in looking at the alumni tab here, if you click into that, you're able to actually see the profiles of all of those different alumni. It's a lot to have to sift through again, so I would definitely recommend narrowing that down. And you can do that by major, you can do that by the type of work that those folks do. So I saw we had some psychology students on, so if you clicked psychology, you can see it takes that 100,000 students or alumni, and it narrows it down to about 5,000 students, which makes it more manageable. If you're thinking that you want to stay in the Grand Rapids area for an internship, now you have, a much smaller pool that you're able to kind of sift through and look through. And this might give you an idea of some of those organizations that folks are working at, some of the different job titles that these different alumni have landed since graduating. Psychology is one of those majors that don't always have a direct path into a job title. So this can give you some ideas into what types of job titles to maybe be looking at, and again, the types of organizations to be looking at. And so even just by clicking into one, and if you don't have to be connected to them initially, you can ask to connect with them, and it's always nice to add a note to that saying, hey, I'm a fellow Grand Valley Laker, would love to connect and learn more about your work history. Can be real short and sweet like that, and you can kind of see what some of those job titles were and some of those experiences that the alumni has had as well. LinkedIn also does have postings too, so you can even look through different postings and internship postings and things like that through the system. But I really like it for that researching component and networking tool where you can start reaching out and then exploring some of those other options. The other thing just to mention about where and how to search are networking events. And that is such a huge piece of what our office really strives to do, is find as many opportunities to help connect our students with employers. We've been doing a lot of virtual events in that way. We're hoping to be able to start bringing back some more in-person events as well. But when it comes to looking for an internship and applying, you don't have this opportunity to meet and to connect with employers once you graduate as you do when you're a student. You always have access to all of our services as an alumni, but the convenience factor of when you're a student and getting in front of employers like you can at career fairs is just so much easier to come by once you're on campus. And so we do have our big career fair coming up next week on the 24th. And I would definitely encourage you, even if you're not looking for an internship maybe right now, it's still a great event to go to, just so you can start exploring what types of opportunities are out there. What kind of questions do those employers ask you? What kind of information do you want to get out of those sorts of interactions? What sorts of things do you want to be asking those employers? And so this talks about how to register for the event. But you can view a list of all the participating employers. We have about 130 some employers, I think, registered at this point. And depending on what area you might be interested in, you can even break it down by that, just to see what employers might make the most sense for you based on your own interest areas. But this is a virtual fair. So it's really convenient in the fact that you can do it from anywhere, that you literally just have to log onto your computer and join your session that you had registered for. And they're quick 10-minute conversations with the employers. So it does have that nice convenience factor, but you do need to register, and then you do need to sign up for those individual sessions. So we do have a video on how to do that right here. We did a workshop on Monday about that. So you can always check that out. We also have Career Lab, which is just a drop-in workspace. So you could always drop into our office Monday through Friday from 11 to 4, or log into our virtual hours in the evenings, Monday through Thursday, if you have any questions about how to go about doing that. But the career fair is definitely a great way to have that face time with those employers and to learn about those opportunities. And then we also do smaller industry related fairs. So as an example, we had careers in econ last week. We're going to be doing careers in public and human and public service next month. I think there's going to be one around communication and the arts coming up next month. So we'll do some smaller, more field specific events as well as our career fair that's coming up. And then eventually you're going to have to apply, right? So kind of getting those materials ready. In most cases, you're going to need a resume, regardless of the type of internship that you're looking at. For the career fair, it will ask for you to upload a resume to the career fair if you're going to participate in that. And we actually have an awesome event coming up this Friday. It's a resume review day with employers. So if you wanted to see what that employer perspective is as you're working on your resume, they've volunteered to meet with students to give them some resume tips. We also have our career lab, which again, you can just drop into anytime between 11 and 4. So that's a great space to do that. And kind of get those materials ready. It's helpful to have a resume and cover letter that is targeted to the experience that you want to apply to. So we can definitely work with you on how to go about doing that. And then of course, prepping for that interview. We have some resources on our website about that interview prep and things to consider. You know, if is it going to be a virtual interview, is it an in-person interview, and the different ways to approach those. And then kind of following up, right? So if you go to the career fair next week, you have some great conversations with those employers. You'll be able to message those folks in Handshake afterwards. Don't be afraid to ask if you can connect with them on LinkedIn, or if you can get their email. If they ask for you to apply for any opportunities within the system, being sure to go ahead and do that. You could drop them a note, let them know that you're still very interested and you've gone through and done that. So don't be afraid to also follow up with those folks that you talk to and you meet with after the career fair. So overall, when it comes to looking and it comes to applying to internships, I always have to revert to my buddy Ted Lasso here. And be curious and be open-minded about your experience. Explore things that maybe you hadn't thought about before, or an organization that maybe you haven't ever heard of before. Be open to talking with them, because you might learn some really cool things through those interactions and through those connections. We had one student who had gone to a nonprofit fair event. He was an engineering student, and he just happened to be walking through and ended up started talking with Habitat for Humanity and was able to secure an opportunity with them just because of his engineering background and his skills. But when you see an organization like Habitat for Humanity, you don't always associate that right off the bat with an engineering student, right? So be curious, right, as you're going through this process and trying to think through the types of experiences and who you might want to be reaching out to and connecting with. So with that, I breezed through a lot of information in a pretty short period of time, but I'm going to turn things over now to our presenters today, or our guests who are joining us today. So we have Megan Logan, who's a writing major here at Grand Valley. So excited to have you guys with us today. And Hannah Stahl, who, as I mentioned, was with our with OST, is a recruiter there. So I am going to actually see if I can unpin myself, figure out how to do this and talk at the same time. And so let you all kind of take it from here. Do we, Megan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and kick us off here?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Megan. I just got out of the class in Henry Hall, hence the background. So I'm here to talk about my internship that I'm actually still employed at. and just kind of the process of how I applied, how I got the job, and what I do now that I'm an intern there. So I applied on Handshake. Professor Malali from the writing department actually sent this opportunity to me, and I applied online. They required a resume and a cover letter, and then I had a phone interview with the internship coordinator, and then a second Zoom interview with the internship coordinator and my future boss. It was really intimidating at first, but I feel like they both went really well because I mean they hired me, so I would go so far as to say that the interviews were not that bad. I currently work for the Interoperability Institute, which is a company involved with the Michigan Health Information Network, a nonprofit that deals with healthcare interoperability and the sharing and exchanging of secure healthcare data. I'm a technical writing intern, so I do a lot of work with documentation and editing presentations, memos, quick reference guides, anything like that. I started this internship in May of 2021, and it's a completely remote internship. So all of my work is done over my work laptop, which they sent me. I did some classes this summer. I had this job and another one, and it all managed to fit in to still meet all the requirements. So it is actually pretty easy to balance stuff like that. It's not as bad as it might sound. There was another intern there in the same program as me. She was a technical writing intern as well. So I learned a lot from her. And now we have a new intern that I'm kind of taking over the role of training and giving my information to him. I, on a daily basis, do a lot with organizing existing documentation and editing and writing new documentation. I do a lot of image and graphic editing through programs like the Adobe Creative Suite, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Snagit, Camtasia. And I also work alongside with developers and software engineers to help create user guides for some of their products that they create. And this is really helpful because I've gotten a lot of skills with communicating with other people with different backgrounds and different work experience and coming up with a really good product in the end that is great for our clients. I also work with the grant proposal team. So I've done a lot of work with proposals and researching information and evidence for them and writing opportunity briefs. And I ended up extending my internship. It was supposed to last for about 6 months. And they asked me to extend. So I'm there for another 6 months. So it'll be a full year and I'll be done in May of 2021. It might lead to a full-time job for me. I think it's a really good possibility. So I'm really excited about that. One of the best parts of working where I do is that my schedule is extremely flexible. If I need to take the morning off for a doctor's appointment or, just to catch up on homework, that's totally fine. I pretty much get to set my hours as long as I work 15 hours per week. It's all remote. I don't have to drive anywhere. My boss has been amazing and she's been a fantastic mentor. And I've learned a lot about the role and just how technical writers do their work and the processes that they use to complete day-to-day operations. And I feel really prepared to apply for a technical writing job after college. As I'm a senior, I'll be graduating in April. And I have gained a lot of work experience from working there and a lot of different areas. So I feel like this has been like the best possible internship I could have gotten.
Great, thank you so much for giving us that overview and kind of walking us through what that process was for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Hannah next. And so if for all of our folks listening, be thinking of some questions that that you might have for either Megan on what the process was like for her, or for Hannah as well, as she's chatting through, or about just the general process for internships at Grand Valley as well. So, all right, Hannah, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Stahl, and I work for OST. We're a technology consultancy based out of Grand Rapids, and we are a strong partner of Grand Valley, so I'm really happy to be here today. I wanted to chat with you a little bit more about reaching out and applying for internship opportunities today. And I loved all of the methods that Rachel showcased for you today that were really creative in how to use Handshake. In addition to that, I think a couple methods that I highly recommend is truly diving into the networking piece and utilizing LinkedIn as a tool. So as you're building out your LinkedIn profile, make sure that you are providing detailed information about either your internships or possible class projects or about hobbies that may apply. And it doesn't have to be extremely technical or professional. So let's say that you are a server at a restaurant. Really highlight those soft skills that you've gained during that experience. So customer service, multitasking, working under in a high pressure environment. These are all things that I would certainly recommend highlighting on your LinkedIn profile. And then once you've beefed up your profile to feel that it's complete, definitely start to look at those profiles that Rachel brought up earlier, possible alumni in the area that you're interested in, and reach out to them and ask them for a virtual coffee, learn more about what they're doing, and build those connections so that the next time an opportunity comes up, they may reach out to you and let you know about it. And that gives you a leg up in the application process. So that's just one way I would recommend being creative about networking. The other opportunity is to look at the companies that you're targeting. So if you have a dream company that you want to work for, look at those people that are in current positions that may be applicable to you. So if you're a marketing major, looking at a marketing specialist or a marketing director, with two very different positions and two very different conversations, but you have the ability to build connections within an organization to, again, get that leg up in the hiring process. I would not limit your networking connections at all. So when your parents come to you and say, my friend Bob works at ABC company, I want you to chat with them, definitely take them up on that opportunity, because those connections are how you land your first job, and it's really important. So don't at all feel any dismay if that's how you land your first job, because then you have the ability to prove yourself and grow from there. Other opportunities, we do post a lot of our internships on LinkedIn. I know a lot of them are on Handshake as well, but definitely look at LinkedIn job postings for internship opportunities, especially those national remote companies are utilizing LinkedIn for those types of roles. And then networking events. So if you have meetup groups that you're interested in, or any hobbies that you're interested in, ask around, see where people are working and if they like their role, and have a great conversation with them about how they fell into that opportunity, and see, maybe there's a connection there that would help you get at that as well. Trying to think of other ways. If I think of any more, I'll add them into the chat, but Rachel did a great job at sharing just different opportunities throughout Handshake. And again, networking is so key here. When it comes to submitting your resume on an app, or your application and your resume for a job posting, it can be really challenging to stand out, because it could be a role that 100 people are applying for. And so I think it's just really important to make sure that you've double checked your resume and had a friend or the Career Center review it for grammatical errors, for flow. Also think of your resume as your own brand builder. So when I'm looking at my resume, I want to make sure that they see me, Hannah, and what I stand for. And whether that's, highlighting maybe my strengths from Strength Finders, or if you've done different service projects, or if you have passions and hobbies that are important to you, that helps in standing out on the resume. I definitely think standing out in that first recruiter screen is going to help get you there, though. So the tips I have for that first recruiter screen are truly going to be yourself. I know it could be really nerve-wracking, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. But if you are yourself and you're bringing your full self to this interview, most likely you will naturally stand out if you have that comfort. So you can do that by practicing interviewing with a friend, practicing with a career center if you are a little bit shy, and just basically record yourself answering interview questions and listen to them back. See what stands out to you. I interviewed someone that had heavy ums and likes for the first 15 minutes of an interview, and I was getting pretty nervous. And then she finally got comfortable, and those completely went away. So just keep practicing, because it's a skill that has to be built. And from there, ensure that you understand and are familiar with the STAR format. So as people are asking interview questions now, a lot of companies have adopted behavioral-based interviewing. And if it's not in the first screen, it will certainly be in the team interview. Behavioral-based interviewing is basically a reflection of what you've done in the past. So especially with an internship, it's probably going to be focused more around schoolwork. So tell me about a time that you've worked on a project and had a challenging teammate. What did you do and what was the result? You can Google this. So you can say top 25 behavioral-based interview questions. There's hundreds. And I recommend printing that out and answering them. And you answer in a format called STAR, which is situation, task, action, and result. I also like to add a little L at the end, which is what did you learn from that situation? So practice behavioral-based interviewing, because it makes your experience so much easier. And with a virtual interview, you have a leg up because you can actually have these notes in front of you. So even if you print it off and you have, let's say, 10 topics. The first one is collaboration. You have an example there in STAR format right in front of you, so you can't forget. You have another one that's on communication right there. You have another one on failure, because they're going to ask negative questions as well, right there in front of you. It can really help you focus and prepare ahead of time. So I would say the last thing when I say bring your whole self to the interview is, especially in my realm of technical, I interview a lot of software developers, and sometimes it can be really challenging to stand out. And so I love to truly know about you. I've interviewed national gamers that have won awards nationally for video gaming. I've interviewed multiple people that have been dancers, and it's just really cool to see those hobbies and things that make you human outside of coding. And so whatever it is for you, definitely embrace that and bring your full self to the interview. The other piece of advice that I have is turning your internship into a full-time opportunity. So this is up to you often. And OST, as we hire interns in the summer, we've got a really great program filled with a ton of fun, but also some really great work. Our intention is to hire you full-time. And if we don't, most likely there was something that didn't work out. And so we look for students that are eager to learn, willing to dive in, and just really willing to be mentored. So that openness to know that you're not the smartest person in the room is really important, because if you're willing to learn from something and someone, most likely you're going to fit in our culture. We're also looking for individuals that are able to self-manage, and that's extremely important right now, because in virtual age we can't sit next to you, so we don't truly know what you're doing every day or every moment of every day. So it's really important that you can stay on task and you're able to prioritize. And so again, reverting back to that interview, you might be asked questions about how do you stay organized? How do you stay on task? How do you balance multiple priorities? These are all things that are really crucial in this virtual age when a lot of people are working remotely. But But ultimately, if you have the heart and the drive to dive in, if you're doing everything you can, asking questions instead of assuming is really important, because we love people that are curious and folks that are unsure. It's always better to go ask questions than not, especially in a remote environment. And those are definitely qualities that are going to stand out. Coming in as an intern, we understand you're not coming with experience, so we hope that you give yourself that grace, and we will as well, as long as you're eager to learn and grow. So truly, we have more conversions than we do where students are turned away, and it's because they're really eager and excited about the work that we're doing. And also they appreciate the flexibility and a culture that fits who they are. And that really flows into what successful interns look like as well. Someone that's passionate about what they do here at OST is really important to us. So I'm passionate about recruiting and building relationships, while our developers are passionate about building software that innovates and software that hits the market, and they can say that they've built that product. So just, I would say, explore, just like Rachel said, explore opportunities that you may have an interest in. Not many people say they want to be a recruiter when they grow up leaving college. So explore different opportunities and intern as early as you can, because that experience is super valuable. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Great, thank you so much. That was such great advice. I'm actually going to stop sharing the screen so we can all see each other a little bit better. So yeah, definitely appreciate all that advice, because I think that's so true. And take advantage of those experiences once you land into that role. Meet with people from other departments. Do sit down 15-minute coffee chats about what do you do? How does this interface with this other department that maybe you're working in, right? So there's lots that you can do to continue to explore even while you're working as an intern. So we wanted to leave some time for some questions from you all, to make sure we were hitting on and addressing those. So feel free to, whether it's drop it in the chat, unmute yourself. We're a pretty casual group here, so I want to make sure we're hitting on what it is that you're looking for. Anybody going to open it up for us?
My question, but one thing I would say is a really good thing to do during your interview is, if they ask you about like your interests or what you did in school as far as extracurriculars, don't be afraid to like tell them what you're interested in, what you're involved in. Me personally, I'm in the Laker marching band here. I play trumpet, and I found out from my boss a few months ago that that was actually one of the reasons that she picked me over other candidates, because she is a lifelong musician too. She plays clarinet, and she knows that musicians sometimes have a slightly different way of thinking than other people. And she understands that, because she is one, and she wanted to work with one too. So she told me that one of my interests was actually kind of deciding factor between me and a different candidate. So don't be afraid to share what you're interested in. You might have something in common with your future boss.
That's such great advice, for sure. Hannah, I'm curious, because I will hear from students that are kind of nervous to reach out to a recruiter or to connect with somebody on LinkedIn if they don't really know them. So from your perspective, what are your thoughts on that when you receive those messages?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And it's funny because even just the past probably 2 quarters, we've done a lot of presentations to classrooms about networking and just how to take that first step. It's scary. And we at OST have a group, it's called a transition group, and it's basically anyone under 25 that works at OST. And we just talked about networking in the group. Just this past week, I did a presentation. And so I think, the sooner you can start networking, the better. And it is scary and it can be intimidating, but it's going to pay off, because although you're not reaching out to someone just to get a job. I mean, ultimately, unless it's a recruiter, and we expect that, and we are totally willing to do that. But if you're reaching out to, let's say, someone in a field that you're really excited about, their job sounds really fun, you're genuinely interested, basically, some tips that I have for you are you can either reach out on LinkedIn or you can reach out in email if you have a connection. So let's again say it's your parent's friend who's the CMO of an organization that you're interested in, or it's your professor's contact that gave you an email address. Ultimately, reach out. The first thing that you can do is warm it up. So share with that person, hey, I received your information from so-and-so. I am very interested in this space that you're in. I just really wanted to connect with you, and then find the common ground. So I've done some research on your position, and I just have some questions about, your preferences or what you've seen in the market. And I'd love to grab a virtual coffee with you. Do you have 15 to 30 minutes to connect with me in the next couple weeks? Boom. Then you can either, to make it easy, you can either leave it like that, or you could even create your own free Calendly link. It's called Calendly. And from that link, they can actually schedule 15 to 30 minutes with you on your calendar. And it's not a back and forth of like, oh, well, does this time work for you? Does this time work for you? But you could do either way. I recommend LinkedIn messages just the same. When you're reaching out, ultimately giving like a 2-week timeline is ideal, because often these people are super busy. So you're probably not going to get a response in the next 24 hours unless they're very active on LinkedIn. And it's possible they have meetings for the next week. So just to really be flexible, to know that we're asking for their time and that we'll get on that calendar. Whenever I am asked to network with someone or to share information about recruiting, I love it. I mean, it's a really great opportunity, again, to connect, build relationships. And so most of the time you are going to get yeah, I'd love to, let's figure it out. And I was actually just talking to my colleague here who was our intern a couple of years ago, and she said, I really wanted to network with this person. I reached out, he said yes, absolutely, but now I've not heard about it, like heard from him. So that happens often. People respond on LinkedIn and then they're off for a few days, or they forget about the message. So another tip is on LinkedIn, as soon as you can, switch it over to email, because when it doesn't look on your checklist, it's on their checklist. But just starting with a quick message of, here's my shared interest. This is what I'm looking for you. This is the time commitment. And this is the timeline in terms of when I'd like to connect, is a very good first start. Again, heading into the conversation with genuine interest, genuine questions, planned questions, because if you don't have those questions planned out, then that first conversation can be a little bit awkward. Because if you're not guiding it, they're going to be like kind of waiting to see, unless you get with someone who is like, okay, let's just go with the flow here, but it could go either way. So as much as you can plan the conversation, the better. And I would say, other than calling them on the phone immediately, or at their workplace, email and LinkedIn are fair game. Recruiters we're very open to saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. So feel free to always do that with any recruiter, because we are looking for everyone right now.
Great, awesome, thank you. And Megan, just out of curiosity, how long did it take for you to land that internship from when you started looking to when you started in the role?
I believe I started looking in February or March of 2021, and I was doing my interviews at the end of March and then mid-April, and then I started the job in May. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. It also depends on how many internships you apply for. So if you're applying for a lot, you're going to be doing a lot more interviews, so it might take longer. So if you're looking for one for the upcoming summer, I would be looking and applying right now.
Great, yeah, thank you. And that's a good point, because if you do have a lot of applications out there, if you are applying to a number of internships, which is totally fine to do, because you want to make sure that if this is especially something you need for credit, right, that you're able to secure that and to land that. But just be mindful, keep good track of who you're applying to, what role it is that you're applying to, when did you apply to that. I worked with a student she was just an amazing spreadsheeter, so she had everything listed out, because when you do get called in for that interview, you want to make sure it wasn't like, oh gosh, I don't remember what that one was, right? So you want to, that's just one way to help kind of keep yourself organized. A lot of times once those jobs expire on like a LinkedIn or a Handshake, they're hard to access again. So, so a lot of times I'll recommend to students just copy and paste a description into a Word doc, just something so you have it somewhere accessible again, because that can start to get a little bit crazy if they're all starting to reach out to you at the same time.
The other piece of information I have too that I can share along with that, kind of had a little light bulb in my head, is I cannot recommend enough that when you're attending career fairs, if you're sending emails out to employers afterward, you truly think about it when you're sending those emails. I get a handful of emails after career fairs that are to the wrong company. So copying and pasting your cover letter into that body, but forgetting to change the company name is a real big bummer when it comes to me, because that's just kind of a red flag on my end. So I just recommend being really mindful about sending out those thank yous, because as much of as that is a great step to take, if you're not mindful about who you're sending it to and you make an accident like that, it's one that you sometimes can't come back from.
Definitely. So good, thank you. I'm glad you found the career guides to be helpful. Yeah, those are kind of hidden gems in there. So, and what's about those are actual Grand Valley students. Those are alumni from the school. So those are typically all organizations that we've had at least some relationships with there. The other thing I just mentioned is if there is an organization you're really interested in interning at, or a type of experience you're really interested in, but you just aren't seeing it posted anywhere, don't be afraid to reach out to that organization, or to reach out to an organization that could potentially have an opportunity that you're looking for. A lot of internships really are self-created, so they might actually never be posted. And so there might be opportunity for that as well. So that's the other reason I think looking through job postings can be pretty helpful, just to help you kind of frame out what type of experience it is that you're looking to do. Deadline to turn in applications for a credit class. Yes, so that is a great question. That might vary a little bit by academic department, but you do register for internship credit as you would for any other class at Grand Valley. So you do want to make sure you meet that drop add deadline to get that class on your schedule through band. Required class, so you are the internship coordinator. They'll get that to you once they approve that internship. So it can be a bit of a couple step process before you can get registered for your class. I will say, I mean, we understand that employers don't always operate on a semester schedule like Grand Valley does, right? So we do try and be flexible with our students. You can always register for a semester that your internship is ending. So say you find an internship and it kind of is a little bit off of a semester timeframe. So maybe it starts in March and ends in October. You know, we see this a lot with students who do an internship at a sports program, for example. And so typically you'll register for your internship in that semester that you're ending your experience. So those are great questions that to ask that faculty coordinator what they would prefer from that academic. Yes, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, trying to be flexible. Yeah, resume and cover letter writing. Those are things that it's a process, right? They're never quite done. You're always updating, always editing. The one piece of advice I really try to give students is to actually just create a document that has everything on it that you've ever done. So it's something, it doesn't have to be formatted pretty, doesn't have to look good, but just as you finish a big class project, plug it into that document. As you finish up a on-campus job, plug it into that document. Just kind of keep a running tab of all of the experiences that you've had at Grand Valley, you know, some of the key classes that you think might be related to what you're looking at doing down the road. And then as you start looking for positions, you can decide what in that big document has the things that are most relevant to what it is you want to be applying to. And then you can start to tailor those materials to best fit those roles that you're looking at. And that sounds like an intimidating process. So that's one of the big things that we do in our office, is work with students on helping you identify what are those experiences that you really want to highlight. You know, Hannah had said, as a server, right, we kind of know what your day-to-day might look like as a server because of your job title, but what sort of role did you play within that organization that we might not know about, right? So we want to kind of pull those things out. So yeah, we would definitely be happy to work with you on that. And we do, as I mentioned, Career Lab. We're in 200 student services and 101B DeVos downtown, so you can hop into either of those locations.
Actually, Rachel, I can also add to that. As Rachel said earlier, I'm one of the career connectors. Some more advice with like constructing resumes is I would highly recommend not using a template for your resume. You can use them as like reference to help you get started, but there's a lot of issues with formatting. It's really difficult to change the margins. It's really difficult to just make it look how you want. One of the biggest issues I see with people coming in is they come in like, I don't know how to fix this. And then I ask, do you use a template? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I can't help you fix your formatting. It's extremely difficult. Another thing with templates is if you apply on Handshake, they will sometimes get filtered out to the point where that some employers will not see them just because there's a weird like transmitting thing with the documents. So when they get scanned and sent to the company, sometimes they don't load properly and then they look all messed up and then they won't want to look at your resume at all because it looks like you didn't do it properly. So I would highly recommend just using like Word document or Google Docs, just using templates as like a reference, but definitely do not download one from a website and go from there because it just will cause a lot of problems later. But yeah, that's all I have to say with that.
With that, yeah, I would definitely agree that templates are not really your friend, because when you find one that you like, I guarantee you there's going to be something that you want to do with it that the template doesn't allow for. And I have literally recreated templates in InDesign before, but that is a really, really time-consuming process, and I don't recommend it. So using a template, literally having it side by side with the one that you're creating is going to be way easier, and just use the font that they have or the colors that they have. And honestly, they're not as hard to create in like Word or Google Docs as you might think.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, I see we're kind of creeping in on our 5 o'clock time frame. So there are a few quick things that you all can do even right now to kind of get yourself ahead. One is to follow us on social media. So at GVSU Careers, we're on pretty much all the social media platforms that are out there. But we put out so much great tips, events, information really related to career. Really, that's one great way just to stay specific events, jobs, internships, or to the different industries that we have. So, so definitely think about joining those career communities. Get that information coming to you so you don't have to go out and really seek it out and pull it out there. So I can drop that here. But any last words from Hannah or Megan? Really appreciate you all being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And anyone here, feel free to reach out to myself or anyone on my team for tips on resumes or internship help. We're super excited for y'all and happy to help anytime.
Yes, thank you so much.